So again, a very warm welcome, everyone, to Demo HQ Day, a very special day here at Demostack. And the reason we're doing this is that the demo is arguably the most important part of the deal cycle, but giving a great demo is much easier said than done. It takes a deep understanding of your customer and a deep understanding of your product, plus a cross-functional effort to make it happen with a hitch. Demoing is actually an operation, and every B2B software company is actually running one, whether you realize it or not. So why don't we treat it that way? Enter Demo HQ, your command center to run the entire demo operation in one place. So that's what we're going to be talking about over the next 4 hours. Our first panel today is a very exciting one, and we are going to dig into the cross-functional transformation, because a great product demo is critical to winning the deal, but creating great demos is complex. It requires business and technical know-how plus input from stakeholders across your organization. Demoing is an operation just like product and revenue ops. So what if we actually treated it that way? So it is a pleasure to be joined today by our panel, starting with Chris Orlob, the CEO of QuotaSignal, Meagen Eisenberg, the CMO at Lacework, Noel, Global VP of Presales at Amplitude, Michael Sindicich, the Executive Vice President and General Manager at TripActions. And again, I'm Nick here, just moving us along. Again, please don't hesitate as we go through this to drop questions into the Q&A. So let's kick this off. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for being here. So as I mentioned, demoing is an operation just like RevOps or product ops. It's the last piece of the sales motion to really get disrupted. So let's talk about what demo ops actually means to you. Ms. Noel, let's start with you. It being a lesser known part of the business, what actually goes into a really good demo?
Ooh, that's a good question to start with. So hi, everyone. Meagen Noel with Amplitude. I think what makes a really good demo, if you think about the demo, and this is where you said just a second ago, it's a lesser known part of the business, generally speaking, which is something that I'm determined to help change, because it's so foundational to your go-to-market motions and your strategy. And yet it's often not well known, overlooked, etc. But it's such a critical part, not only to the core product, but as you release new product as well. So what makes a good demo from the ops perspective, I mean, I think if you think about traditional product marketing, right, you've got your 4 Ps, or, product, packaging, pricing, etc. And the packaging, if you were to think about the demo from a software perspective as, a physical object on a shelf, it's the packaging of that product that you're selling. And so it is critical to make sure that, from the foundational perspective, that you're showcasing your product and the packaging that you put together. And that's the demo really at the outset, right? And secondarily, it's also really critical to ensure that you're not overloading your prospects with functionality or features. It's really about what is important to that customer. What are the key elements to your product that you can showcase in a demo without losing people, without going too deep on all the bells and whistles that you might think are cool, but maybe are set up for more of an advanced conversation. So I think first and foremost to think of it as the packaging of your product is a critical step, and then secondly, make sure that you're showcasing your product in a way that translates the value that the customer is going to get from it.
I really like how you laid that out. And a quick reminder, make sure that you are posting to everyone if you are adding in the chat, not just the hosts and panelists. Chris, let me ask you, how do you know if you actually have cohesion in the go-to-market team around your demo operations?
Yeah, I'm killing video just for a second because Zoom keeps screaming at me that my internet bandwidth is weak. So hopefully it earns my trust back over the next couple minutes here, but I swear I'll turn it back on in a minute or two as it warms up. I think the best signal of cohesion is that everybody is speaking the same language and everybody is on the same page when it comes to the problems that the demo solves for, right? Meagen Noel made a really good point, which is a great demo is not just about a bunch of bells and whistles. It's about the business pain or the business problem that you're solving for. And if the organization does not have a collective understanding of what that is, then that manifests in a demo kind of being all over the place. That's when you get these Wild West demo scenarios where everybody's kind of doing different things. I think the internet has earned my trust back, so I haven't seen it scream at me for the last couple minutes. But I think that's probably the biggest piece is there unification around the problem, or more accurately, the set of problems that the demo solves. And sometimes demos solve multiple problems, multiple use cases. And so I think that's step one, is unifying not just the sales team, but the go-to-market organization around those business problems. And then comes, how do we solve them? Which the answer to that is generally how your demo flows.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Ms. Eisenberg, the narrative from a marketing perspective is obviously so critical. So how do you align the company around the same narrative so that they have confidence when they are demoing?
Yeah, so, we here at Lacework actually use the force management methodology. And I think if your sales rep's done a great job in discovery and really understood the prospect or the customer's pain, so kind of the before scenario, what are their challenges? And then, your job is to get them to the positive business outcome and the after scenario. And there's a gap that exists between what they're feeling pain and what you want to get them to with your product or your solution. And that gap or that delta is called the required capabilities. And your demo should nail those required capabilities. And not to, to Megan's point, Chris's point, don't throw all the features in there and blind them. It's just, you clearly understand their pain, demo what your solution will solve, and at the same time, lay the traps for your competitors. It's the best way to position and deposition them. And so it's the perfect time between the sales rep and the SE, if an SE is involved, depending on the how complicated the technology is. Ideally, you can come up with a demo that's not complicated, but I think that's the right way to execute a demo in a short amount of time.
I love that. Michael, you and I were having a conversation the other day, and you've given thousands of demos in your career. And I love how you drew the analogy to a demo being like a well-rehearsed play. There's theater to this that showcases the relevant pieces of how the product maps to the pain point. So, take me through that theater, Michael. What is it? How are you thinking about that when you're actually jumping on and performing a demo?
Yeah, I think to your point, it's exactly like a well-rehearsed play, a demo. And I got to attend, I was in New York last weekend, and I got to attend the Saturday Night Live in the audience. And it really reminded me of what goes on into a demo. So your prospects or whoever you're demoing is just going to be the audience on the other side of the live TV. But you see cameras everywhere. You see prep. If you get up to go to the bathroom, someone takes your spot so that the audience looks full. And it's exactly what a real demo is like. Everyone talked about all the discovery you do, how you understand. It's so much of, where are people sitting? How are you sitting next to different people? What are they reacting to? What do their faces look like when you show specific features? And the entire demo is this massive performance, especially when you're at a product-led kind of company like TripActions is, or some of the other companies I've worked for. And the product is what you're selling, and you have to deliver and showcase this product in a perfect way with all the inputs and all the things that are important to the people who are in the room. And to Megan's point, laying traps around the competition, showing things that are important to the customer that you do that a competition wouldn't do. And it's really just like this rehearsed play that everyone has the talk track, but you can interact live with that audience and pivot when you need to. And that to me is the demo. And ultimately the person delivering that demo is the star of the play. They are the centerpiece that delivers this entire story to the prospect that you're pitching to.
I love that. We've got a great question. It's not totally on track, but I'd love to ask Ms. Noel, what happens? How do you, from a sales engineering perspective, how do you flip the demo if someone hasn't done discovery, or maybe if the discovery was a bit misleading? That's a question from Kevin Rasdale.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think you have to be able to be agile. Like one of the best things about being in pre-sales is you get people who are attracted to the role, who typically are, very intellectually curious, but also able to pivot a lot. And the role is somewhat defined, the core duties, but also there's so many other things, as we all know, that pre-sales is asked to do and support. And so being able to pivot live, right, to anticipate some of these, let's say you have a new stakeholder that you didn't anticipate is joining the call, but they are now on the call, and they, want to take you down a rabbit hole of things you didn't know in the discovery or didn't hear about. There's two pieces to that. One is, you don't want to be dismissive of, anything new that comes up. There's always something to learn, even when you're presenting. You should be. It's a discovery opportunity as well, right? Whether that's a new stakeholder or an existing one. And so sometimes you can kind of go down a little bit into, asking more questions, right? So applying your critical thinking and intellectual curiosity to that request or that question, or, maybe somebody wants to get really into the weeds on a certain piece of the product. So being able to go to a certain degree in those directions, but not take yourself so far off of your agenda, right? And that you can, sort of redirect back to, the original intent that you heard through discovery that you're trying to showcase and tell show tell loops. So it's a bit of a, it's like a little bit of an advanced skill set that takes some practice. And again, not, you don't want to be so scripted that you can't pivot in the middle of a conversation with a customer to again, ask more questions. Why is that important to you? How are you doing that today? There's some very simple, 1, 2, 3 type questions that you can ask and still then direct back to your original agenda.
I love that. It's a great answer. I've got one more on this topic, marketing related question, Ms. Eisenberg. How do you look at the before state of pain and the delta between where your client is and where you're trying to get them to?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you an example with Lacework. So when we're talking to prospects or customers, they'll talk about the hundreds of thousands of alerts that are coming in with their current solution, and they have 5 people. How do you look at 100,000 alerts in a day with 5 people? You don't. It's not efficient. So that's pain. And then we have the end state is, wouldn't it be great if you only saw the alerts that matter, right? Just the ones, the 5, 10 that you really need to look at. So that required capability is a technology that takes the mass amount down to the ones that really matter. So we show them our polygraph technology, and that is a way that ingests all that data. It maps just for them, and it can tell them in real time if anything has changed slightly. And so they can very quickly hone in on the alerts that actually matter. And so that would be an example of their pain, what the after state looks like, what the required capabilities are. And we would be laying that trap, and we would deposition our competitors by saying, your competitors, you have to have rule-based, right? They have to write rules to detect it. So if an unknown threat comes in that there's no rule for, they won't see it. But we'll see it with polygraph because it's looking at your data every day and notices it notices any change in that.
Nick, can I riff off that for a second?
Please do.
So I think one of the things that Eisenberg is illustrating is that, hold on, one more time off of video, and then I hope I'll be back. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I think one of the things that she's illustrating well is that to demo really well, you have to understand the perceived root cause of the business problem you're solving. Right? Because demos and products don't solve business problems. They solve root causes to business problems, right? So like the cheesy example I always use in like our courses and what have you is if you were driving your car on like a road trip and it broke down on the side of the road, and I asked you, what are you going to buy to fix the car? You don't know what you're going to answer with until you know what caused the car to break down. Right. So it's like, did it run out of gas? Did the battery die? I'm like the worst car guy of all time. I don't know why cars break down generally, but you guys know where I'm going with this. And that would dictate how you position your demo. And so I think that illustrates the cross-functional nature of getting, a great demo, because yes, product marketing and whoever help, sales engineering can put together an amazingly effective demo. But if it's off the mark in what your customer perceives as the root of their problem, then it's not going to land. And so a very simple way pre-sales people and sellers can get clear on that is just asking, what's your take on why this challenge is happening? And you'll get some pretty rich answers to how customers are perceiving the root of their problem when you ask that.
Nick, I'm going to add to that before we move along, because I'm so passionate about this. As you think about, most of our teams probably have done something like MedPick. I saw Force Management mention things like command of the message. And, we're working through this too, but I often see that we mistake a problem for pain, right? If we think about the MedPicks. And so I think, Chris, what you're getting at, and Megan to a degree, is, sort of diagnosing what, a customer might come to you and say, I have this problem. And, oftentimes a seller might say, oh, that's the pain. No, that's not the pain, right? The root cause, is a business problem. Sometimes your biggest competitor is going to be do nothing. And in fact, in our current market environment, most of us are probably thinking about that, right? Do nothing is a great solution right now to save costs. And so, you got to battle against this. Okay, I have a problem, but the question is it painful enough to the business to solve, right? And so, we're talking about the demo. We're not talking about the selling tactics, but I do think it's important to interweave the two as you tell the story of your product to the customer, right? And understanding the problem is only step one. And then asking really good discovery questions, or even making great assumptions that get validated or devalidated during that demo, is a great way to actually uncover, is this a painful thing to the business? Or is this just it would be great to solve that problem, but is it compelling enough to, to solve today, right? And so I think it's important for pre-sales people, as we go through demoing, which is one stage of the process, to, incorporate that kind of thinking into your demo of the product.
That's fantastic. Real quick, can you just expand on what force management is?
Yeah, well, and it sounds like Eisenberg has more in practice at the moment too. But Force Management is a pretty well-known contractor that provides, there's a couple of frameworks that they'll come into your organization and implement with you. Command of the message is one. I think there's a bunch of others that come along with that, and certainly help your sales organization at large to develop a framework and a methodology around, how you're going to market.
That's fantastic. All right, we're going to pivot a little bit into some of the challenges that you face in the demo ops. So Michael, again, you've given thousands of demos at TripActions. What are some of the typical, headaches, problems that you're going to run into specifically demoing TripActions?
Yeah. So I would say like the most important thing is reliability. And I'll give you a few examples. So we might be demoing something in a board meeting, or we might be, selling, right, and demoing to a prospect, or maybe we've sold our travel and expense solution and we go to an SKO and we're going to demo and explain to the team that we just sold this to in front of 1,000 people live on how to use our travel and expense platform, and that we're excited and we're launching it. So I think demoing is much more and more expansive than what a lot of people think of it as just a sales demo, right? Because you can demo many different things, different pieces, different buyers. You can do it, in a board meeting or even a pitch when you're going to raise money. And the thing that's so important is that it's reliable, because one little ripple, or if something doesn't work, it can really throw off the whole, I guess we'll say like theater or presentation, to use the example earlier. So I feel like making sure that you have an environment that's super reliable, that's stable, that does the thing that you expect it to do each time, it's really important. The other thing that I'll say is it depends on the product that you have, but typically you don't want to be demoing your production data, because let's say, in our example, we've got expenses, we've got travel, we've got information, right, that we shouldn't be demoing or showing to our customers. So it just therefore by default means we need to have a demo environment. And, there's a lot of different pieces. And one of the things that's really helpful with Demostack is we don't need to go and build, go and maintain, have a new staging environment, make sure that when we launch something to production, we launch it to the demo environment, but leverage Demostack to be able to have this all-in-one platform that stays updated and allows us to have that reliability, whether there's, to Chris's point, Wi-Fi or no Wi-Fi, you have something that's going to work when you need it to be ready so that you can deliver your theater. And I think that those are the two things. It's reliability and it's being able to have an environment that is compliant, right? And works well for your sales motion.
I swear my Wi-Fi issue was not staged and a softball, but it worked out pretty well in that way.
Can I just say, as someone who spent 120 days on the road in 2022, a big hat tip to TripActions, because without you, it would have been a lot of longer days at the airport. So
Thank you.
Big fan. Ms. Noel, sales is the voice and the front lines of everything that we're doing, but how do we sanity check our demos?
Yeah, well, I think that part of the role we play is sanity check, right? I think, there's there's a lot of ground to cover between your stages, right? From, the initiation of a conversation all the way through to close one, right? And so I think, part of the way I see pre-sales is we're in sales, A, and B, so we're selling the product, right? And yes, that involves a lot of, technical validation steps and all of that. But at the end of the day, we are, just as much in sales. And so we play a critical role there, not only in selling the product and making sure, all the components of that, match up with the customer needs, and then translate value and are competitive, differentiated, and all of that. But we also, I think, have the opportunity to help close any gaps along the way, right? It's, yes, the AE is sort of tip of the spear and owns that relationship, as a primary stakeholder in its success. But we are equally as invested, or should be, in the success of that account. And so I think part of, the thinking that I have about pre-sales is a little bit, I think over the years I've noted that, we have, I think as a profession or as a piece of sales organization, at times gotten very deep into the technical win requirements, or some of the functionality aspects of the product, and certainly we have to have that expertise, right? But also we have to be able to sell along with that. And so some of that, those gaps can be covered in the stages that we lead and we take the customer through, and covering over any gaps that the AE may not have been able to cover in the initial conversations they had with the customer.
That's great. So quick informal poll, panelists, just by hands up. Do we prefer, I'm pretty sure I know the answers, but for the audience, do we prefer having a separate discovery call or a disco demo? So separate discovery call. Well, this is interesting. Chris, you want to fight me on this?
I think it depends on where the buyer is in their buyer's journey. I think, it varies wildly based on where that buyer is coming from. So it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's the truth.
No, but you're right. And I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, second, unofficial poll, same thing, hands up. Are we comfortable with AEs demoing?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, they need to be able to demo.
I love that. Okay, that was a great answer. All right, keeping going about your specific roles based on what you do in the demo operation. So, Ms. Noel, demo ops is where you live, obviously, as we're discovering here. But foundationally, as sales engineers, how do we make sure that we're actually using the right tools to sell our product?
Yeah, great question. I think that, again, we kind of go back to one of your earlier questions about the importance of the demo ops function within the business. And I think setting yourselves up for success early on is really critical to that. I know that that's not your common scenario, right? You've got demo ops generally is lagging many other teams in terms of funding, investment, and resources, things like that. But again, if you really think about how critical that is to the success of your business, really it's about, if you were, kind of going to go back and do it all over, it would be about, starting out with an investment that can scale as your business scales, as your product strategy scales, and as you go from single to multi-product or platform at some point. And so, I think, those are some critical elements that I think about in demo ops, but also in terms of the right tools. To your point, I mean, we're here talking about Demostack, which is one of my favorite tools, as everyone knows, because it has solved a critical problem for us in terms of being able to scale without adding headcount resources in demo ops. And so certainly we want to do both, right? But also it's been a critical tool for our teams like product marketing to be able to, as they're releasing new features or new products, utilize Demostack to scale those things outside of building new sites for every single thing that we release. And so I think it's great that we're seeing innovation, especially in this space, because it is a kind of a historical issue, even in a very mature business. Where does demo ops sit? How much do we need to fund this? And essentially, you think about it, you're creating a carbon copy environment that you then have to support over time, just like your product, right? Which most companies that I've been with don't always have the foresight thinking about. So I think having innovation like Demostack to be able to scale and utilize tools like that, absolutely critical, has been critical to our business.
That's great. Michael, great question here from Heather. It can be a challenge to define internally what AEs can and should demo on their own versus what warrants bringing in a sales engineer. Where's that line for you?
For me, it's about the product that you're selling. So at TripActions, from our smallest SMB customers all the way up to our enterprise customers, our AEs deliver the demo. There's no such thing as an SE at TripActions. So we think, travel is not super complicated. Expense isn't super complicated. Sometimes you might have in-depth conversations with a specialist on how you can set up a specific ERP integration, or maybe you're setting up a very, very global travel program for some of our biggest Fortune 500s. And we'll have a conversation around that. But every AE at TripActions does the demo and is responsible for it. If it's a much more complicated product, like, let's say it was an ERP system, then I think you probably need an SE, and you need to customize the demo a lot ahead of time. And you need to, have much more, specifics there that you would bring an SE in for. So to me, that's where the line is. It's dependent on how complex the product is, and I guess how complex the sales cycle would be.
That's great. Ms. Eisenberg, how do you know from a marketing perspective if you're actually aligned with sales when it comes to going to market with your product?
Yeah, so I have two thoughts on this. One, certainly as a CMO, you're supposed to be aligning the entire company around the story, and the story plays out in the demo. And so I think a lot around making sure AEs, SEs are all certified. They understand the product. They know what the highlights are. They're on top of the newest features and releases that they can bring into the story they're telling. And then I think the second thing is making sure product is moving so fast, right? If we think about our product teams, they're building fast, TripActions building fast, Lacework building fast. You have to make sure the go-to-market teams are keeping up. And so it matters a ton that they, you treat the demo like a product, right? So it's its own living, breathing thing that you're taking to market. So understanding the story, understanding how to incorporate the discovery questions, and being up to date on the latest so you can show that to the prospect.
Chris, we a lot, hear about the nitty gritty that goes into maintaining the demo environment, because the demo is what we're actually selling, the experience that they're buying. So operationally, how do we look at that? How do we look at maintaining a demo environment?
Well, I'm the small fry out of this panel, so I might be the least qualified to try to answer that. but I'll do my best and then I'll lean on everybody else. I think it's a cross-functional effort, right? I think you need a single person accountable for making sure the demo environment is performing at the level that you need. But generally, you're going to need several skill sets into making sure that happens, right? You're going to need the storytelling that goes into it, which could come from product marketing or it could come from sales engineering. And sometimes you're going to need more technical skill sets to make sure the demo environment is reliable, unlike my Wi-Fi access that we've been experiencing so far today. So that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg answer. And I would love, if somebody else has like a more in-depth answer that they want to tack on to what I just said.
Any takers?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said something critical there, Chris. That's something we're very we're working through fundamentally, which is treating the demo as a product. If you really take that to its endpoint, what does that mean, right? Are you going to staff an entire product organization around the demo? Probably not, right? But I think in theory, what you're getting at is that there's a primary ownership, but there's a lot of overlap and dependencies, between an engineering team or your product team, your marketing team. There's foundationally supporting your demo environments, updating them, keeping them current, all the things that go along with that. There's the presentation layer of the packaging of that, for different use cases. I think about, Megan's role as a CMO, and one thing that we're looking at now and have been is, at the top funnel stages, you go to any of our software websites and the call to action is get a demo, right? And we know that that's what customers want. They want to see the product and they've done some homework and they've probably heard of it and all these things. So you're going to get various needs of a demo, so to speak, or a product experience at different stages of the funnel. Well, so that is going to require another, layer of packaging on what, your demo might look like once you're in a funnel, talking to a rep or talking to an SC or a sales engineer. So there's many layers to that, I think, and there's ownership. There should be shared ownership and acknowledgement of, the critical nature, as I've said, of the demo and all its various forms and facets in your business, so that you are, you don't only have, sort of a single point of failure in your business when, with a team that solely operates. And so I've seen that play out in different ways, right? So you have, people who are assigned to that in different teams, or you have, sometimes you'll have a demo ops team in a more mature business that has its own engineers or its own operations. And so there's a lot of ways to take that, but just expanding on what you're saying there.
No, that was great. I really like that answer. So I'm curious, I'd actually like to ask everyone this. I'll start with you, Michael. Who owns the demo environment at TripActions? Who has direct ownership and accountability?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have somebody on the sales enablement function that ultimately owns the Demostack environment and keeps it up to date and make sure that we have demo environments for various segments and various customer sizes, because then we can basically conform the data to the size of the customer that we'd be selling to and the complexity. But I would just add, I think the value of Demostack is that one person can own it and really run the entire demo environment. Then an engineering person, a product person, a couple operations, right? Like normally, if you're building and maintaining this entire new second, I would say, product within the company, being able to have someone who's not as technical run and manage the entire demo environment for the whole company. And it's not his full-time job, by the way, the person who owns it. It's amazing. The other thing that we firmly believe in, we put a lot of accountability into our sales reps and our managers, and any sales manager can go in and customize it and make an environment that they want their team to use. And I think that's really powerful, because ultimately, if you're responsible for driving revenue for the company and the demo environment and the demo is a way to do that, then you should have full accountability and ownership as a manager to get your team what they need to be able to close deals and bring on revenue. So I would say there's one person in sales enablement, but then each manager and each sales person is accountable for their environment.
Ms. Eisenberg, how do you look at that from Lacework's perspective?
Yeah, similar to MongoDB, sales engineering is the owner of the environment, and then they partner with sales enablement on the training.
Got it. So let's talk about what a successful demo looks like. We've got about 8 minutes left here, so I want to make sure we cover a lot of the topics that we wanted to get to. So what does that look like, Ms. Noel? Like, what is your ideal wish list when it comes to demo ops? Because you live it every day as a pre-sales leader. Should it be a single owner who's managing the demo? How do you create this tight coordination as it gets born? And how do you maintain it over time? What's your best case, your wish list?
Yeah, the wish list, again, if I think I said this a second ago, but if I could go back and advise a business starting out earlier, it would be invest earlier in your demo operations team or resources, or whatever it is that you're creating there. If you're creating a demo site that needs its own team to maintain, or utilizing something like Demostack from the outset so that you don't have to have demo sites. It depends, however that works for you, but earlier on, that should be a critical investment, especially in stages where you're going to market with your core product and looking for product market fit. That's the point at which you, in my opinion, should make that investment for the future. And there's lots of ROI to be had around that, by the way, but that's the point at which I think investing in your demo operation, whatever that may need or look like in your environment for your software, so that it can scale with your business, as most companies do, right? You get product market fit, and then you add products to increase your, value to the customer and obviously your revenue. So that's another critical, sort of jump off point. And if you're not prepared for it, you can get easily kind of overwhelmed and behind in some ways with your demo environments and maintaining them. And so that's where Demostack comes in many cases is, oh, whoops, we now need a whole bunch of different environments. We don't have the resources to create this. Demostack solves that, right? So I think if I could go back or advise anyone who's, at the earlier stages where you're still, going to market with your core product, that's the key point in time and to invest in, how do you want to set this demo operation up for scale? And then over time, obviously look at, is that the right model? And then, ownership is always another component to that. And who ultimately, it is important to have a primary owner for that. And that's where demo ops comes in. But again, shared ownership is also critical that other teams understand, so that over time you're well supported as the business grows, as your product evolves, as new features are released. You need to make sure your demo is your product, right? So if it's not keeping up with your product development, then you're lagging, right? And you're not going to market with the best of the best.
Michael, you set us up on a stage with the main actor who's ready to wow the crowd. So what does that actor need? What does a successful demo operation look like to you?
Yeah, I'll go back to reliability. Honestly, it's reliability and predictability, and the confidence that the AE or whoever is delivering the show can pivot and jump into any way. Because I think the best sellers that I've ever seen are the best performers, especially if you're demoing yourself as an AE. It's the person who can pivot, who can take inputs. If someone asks a question, they can immediately navigate in the product where you can show how the product solves that pain point or solution. So the thing you need is a reliable environment that showcases ultimately the needs from the discovery that you've uncovered, right? And whether that's discovery before or during, and the ability to pivot. So having that reliable environment is what's going to help you, again, when you're going and launching a product to a 10,000 person event at an SKO, all the way to showing a demo in a board meeting from a new product that you're building and launching.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Ms. Eisenberg, I know you live in data every day as a marketer. What are some of the things that you're tracking? What are some of the key metrics that you're looking for in your demo operation?
From the marketing side, we would consider it a tier 1 if someone comes to our website and wants to see a demo, right? So number one, what is inbound, are people requesting, have we compelled them enough to learn more? So certainly looking at just volume of demos, and then conversions. Do they go on to the next stage of the funnel? And then of course, do we get to a point where they buy us? And so we're watching the funnel all the way across. We go back and we listen and we watch demos. If you have Chorus.ai or Gong, either one, you can go back and really learn and see what are things that people are asking about. Those are critical. What are some of the things that customers want? So you can train the field and enable them further, or go find the answer, or return the feedback back to the product team, right? Making sure that there's a full closed loop there. And so demos are critical for us to understand our customers better. So we're looking at a full set of metrics.
Michael, from your point of view, are you just tracking win rates?
Win rates are important for sure, and it's the leading indicator. And it's revenue it's productivity per AE and win rates. But then the other thing you can track is where people spend their time on the demo and how that correlates to win rates. And you can correlate to the buyer, right? So if you're talking to a controller and you're selling our expense platform, you probably want to spend a lot of time on the policy. You want to spend a lot of time on the reporting and visibility. If you're doing a demo to a CRO talking about how to make travel and expenses easier for their team, you probably want to spend more time on the user experience and the apps. And so I think win rates are an indicator, but it's about digging into the sub-level metrics to figure out which pieces of the demo are the most important to the buyers that you're selling to. And then you can take that data back and go train the rest of your team.
Love that. So last question, we're going to talk about implementing this way of thinking about the demo operation across your entire go-to-market organization. Chris, what are some of the tactical steps to consider when envisioning your demo HQ?
I think one of the things to keep in mind is, are you solving the customer's problem with a level of exactness, or are you over solving it? And you'll start to get signals across your organization as to whether that's happening. We call that demo creep over here. But one of the habits of a sales organization or a pre-sales organization that does not have demo discipline is they'll oversolve, right? They'll start demoing exactly what solved the customer's pain, but then they keep going. They go, and also you can do this over here, and also you can do this over here, and also you can do this over here. And they think it's going to turn on a light bulb. And in some cases with like an early, not an early stage, but like a visionary buyer, it might, but you're kind of rolling the dice, and your odds are you're going to be creating objections. And so one of the most counterintuitive things that I've found to a successful demo is solving their problem on a one-to-one basis, right? They've got a business problem. There are 3 to 4 perceived root causes of that problem. And you show them 3 to 4 parts of your demo that mirror back to those pain points in a one-to-one way. And if you can scale that across your organization, to me, that's a signal of a very healthy demo motion.
So great comment from Nathan, who said, every time Chris shares a tip, I feel like I'm getting smarter. I think that's true for this entire panel. This was an unbelievable session. I do have to wrap it up, but a very big thank you to Meagen Noel, Meghan Eisenberg, Michael, and Chris. And I'm going to highly suggest you follow these